We should do exercises, mouth exercises for talking, like those funny ones.
Oh, the classic
Like
ones.
ow, 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 ow. And then you keep that as the intro.
3, 2, 1, and we're live. Episode 14 of the All In Loyalty podcast. All things loyalty, all in one place. It's been a very interesting couple of weeks. We've got a lot of interesting topics to cover. My goodness, there's a lot that's been happening. Just as a little warm-up, I mean, we just heard last night that Tim Cook is actually stepping down as CEO from Apple. Doesn't have much to do like in the loyalty sector, but it's just like for business news, it's a big thing that affects everyone. Did you guys hear about that he's replaced, and anything about his replacement is kind of crazy, right?
I actually didn't hear about that.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, the head of hardware takes over the CEO position now.
Continuing in 3, 2, 1. Definitely nothing happened just there. Everything is good. We were just talking about Tim Cook. I was just giving my sort of take that basically what I had been hearing about people from him is that while he is a very good and performing CEO, he didn't have the same sort of impact, market leader, creating waves instead of riding them impact that Steve Jobs had. That's kind of always the issue when you follow up such a big and visionary leader, is that you'll always just get compared to your predecessor. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any initial takes that you guys have about this when it comes to the CEO sort of switch that we've been seeing. Any predictions how this is going to go? Why this is? Is it a response to the times? Is he just ready to step down? Like, any initial thoughts?
No, he didn't do anything. I mean, of course, market cap went up crazy. So for shareholders, it was for sure good. But at the end of the day, from an innovation perspective, like zero comparison to Steve Jobs, like literally. I don't know how, honestly, the new CEO, I think John Turnus or something like that, he was the head of hardware, will take over. Don't really know. I mean, for me, I would have, let's say, if you look at the kind of the culture of Apple, at least how Steve Jobs set it up, and kind of the values that he had to lead the whole company, I would have chosen Johnny Ive, basically the head of design from Apple, because at the end of the day, it's such a design-driven company.
True.
I think he got the most amount of influence from Steve Jobs. How to build products, how to design them, how to market them, etc. I think Tim Cook was a really strong manager. Again, market cap went up like crazy, but doesn't have the same feel. Doesn't have the same, I don't know. Doesn't feel like the same company, to be honest.
I get the feeling that a lot of the time,
hard to top or hard to come close to. I mean, one of the biggest, most famous entrepreneurs in the world. But yeah, just from my gut feeling, I would have put, I mean, it doesn't work anymore at the company, but I would have put more John Ive as a lead, instead of kind of more a manager person like Tim Cook.
It feels like it's maybe something of a safety decision. Like I can kind of imagine the mindset that people would be in after Steve Jobs passed away. They're probably then, looking for something safe, looking for something stable, and that maybe that's why they eventually defaulted to Tim ultimately, because they know that, he can get the job done. He's not necessarily a huge visionary or whatever, but to actually carry on the legacy and keep things operational and keep things growing and whatnot, maybe then, then it becomes the right choice. I mean, hey, we'll see in the future what happens. Apple's been a very interesting player to watch recently. I mean, we all watch the All In podcast, they're always curious and speculating about what Apple's position really is in the AI race and stuff like that. It's a very curious company to follow right now, because it's still a big kind of a question mark in the industry.
I was going to say, they have a position in AI?
That's the question mark.
I'm sure even there? I mean, they just closed the deal with Google recently, so that Google Gemini will be their main engine. So In my opinion, they completely lost that. Google still, in my opinion, the way Google does it is among the better strategies, because it lets everyone else do all the experience, and then they basically learn from it, and then they start implementing theirs. Not to say that Gemini is better than any other AI specifically, especially for everyday use and so on. But yeah, I think Apple kind of thought Siri was godlike, and they kind of missed the train on making it really godlike with good AI.
But the thing is really that if you think about it, like, I mean, distribution is how should I say? I think distribution will be interesting to see a bit how it will evolve. Let's say take Claude, take OpenAI, etc. That basically are pure AI players, right? And they connect to all these tools from Google Drive to Gmail to whatever basically tools you use, right? And on the other side, you have these massive players like Google, like Apple, and so on, that already have huge distribution networks, huge amount of users, etc., which have huge amount of data. So basically, the basis that you need to actually use whatever AI well. So it is kind of interesting to see how it will evolve, because in theory, if they get it right, distribution will, from my perspective, win. Because if you have, I mean, imagine if you have a strong AI on your Mac, strong AI on your iPhone, the amount of stuff that you can do with all the data that you have on there, it's really crazy. Google, the same thing, like for us.
It's just that in the meantime, everyone's hyped about OpenClaw, and it works on your computer. It sees everything on your computer. So it's like, do you even need something else, you know? If people start adopting, you know, it's...
I mean, look at Claude. They launched a feature, and I'm not saying they killed OpenClaw, not at all, but like people that were thinking about OpenClaw and, for example, using Claude, there's almost no reason to now install OpenClaw or something like that, but you just go with the tool that you have. So I think
it is true. It is true, though, that the fans of speculation have started flaming with exactly what you're talking about, Gabriele, with like regards to Siri and the implementations that there could actually potentially be through there. Not to mention, the whole Amazon track is also something that people don't talk about that much, but think about how many households actually have active like Alexa programs and stuff. And that was one of the first things that people said is like, guys, like, isn't this the most obvious play in the world? Imagine if Alexa suddenly was smart, or like LLM smart, or something like that. I still just use it to turn on my lights, you know, and set an alarm in the morning. But imagine if it was actually able to talk to you all the time and actually have conversations. It feels like the most logical next step. And there's a little bit of speculation that's going on that like we might be seeing something like that on the Amazon side very soon. That's another player where people have been wondering what they're going to be, you know, what their main like play is going to be in the AI race. So that's definitely going to be interesting.
What is weird with Apple is that usually they were always first end to end doing everything. Like they basically were they were like building the whole supply chain was like their products. And basically they had was not really a connection to other players.
It's fully integrated.
Yeah, right. Take Dell. They take a lot of external products and so on, and or elements of their products. And so it's kind of weird that they didn't set up their own LLM and that they didn't invest in that side, or at least nothing is public about it. But
I mean, do you think it's possible that they were just late to the race? Do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah. Otherwise, you wouldn't strike a deal with Google, probably one of your biggest competitors when it comes to even software and hardware to a certain degree with the Google phones. I mean, okay, I don't think they're really competing with Apple and iPhones, but you wouldn't strike a deal with them to use their engine or their AI as your main Siri AI.
And I think
like you wouldn't do that.
That's the big difference between a Tim Cook and a Steve Jobs. I think under Steve Jobs, that would have never happened. The guy would have.
He would have probably been like
10
we're
years
the first to launch AI, and and dictate how AI is being used.
Fully integrated with every product that you have, and
he probably would have even gone so far to like make it as human as possible, so that when you look at your iPhone, there's someone there, like an actual like human looking person that's your AI, talks to you, and
a little Steve.
You kind of reminded me with what you said about the series Succession. You know, when you have like this huge empire that was built up by the one guy, Logan Roy, who's like the godfather of the whole thing. And then the son takes over when he's on his deathbed, and when they think he's on his deathbed, and you know, he tries to operate everything as well as he can. And he goes to his dad, who's like recovering, and he said, "Okay, I think I was able to keep us afloat. I did this and this and this." And the dad just goes, "You're an effing idiot." Yeah. That was one of those first moments in that series where I was like, okay, this is a really good script. Damn. Very nice.
Succession is, I love that series. I think I watched it like 5 times.
I need to rewatch it for sure. It's fantastic. But anyway, that was a good warm-up round. We're going to delve into now a loyalty topic, a very interesting one, because it pertains to the growing sort of importance of these programs and their place kind of in the customers' lives. And this takes in the form of, in this case, 2 different articles that we want to talk about here. The first one coming from a Barclays report. And the title of this one is Travelers See Points as a Second Currency. We've touched on this topic a couple of times. We've touched on, you know, the impact that these points have been having, and the fact that it has sort of gone through a bit of a perception shift. Whereas maybe back in the day, it might have been seen as like a cherry on top, or a little, you know, extra thing that you have when you go to a business, the classic stamp card sort of system. The fact that people are taking these a lot more seriously, and that they're looking at these and analyzing them and trying to figure out what the best way to move forward is with this stuff, and the impact that that has on the industry as a whole. So we're going to delve into a couple of these points. We're going to go over a couple of these metrics, and then we'll be able to sort of compare takes and see what we think about what the future is going to be looking like for some of these points. So the first one that I want to share here is kind of the opening paragraph that we see in here, which is rewards that make trips smoother. I'm just going to paraphrase a little bit, but at least for the beginning now, I'm just going to mention here the text. Points and miles are taking on a new role in the traveler mindset. Less treat yourself, more save me time. Fresh findings from the Barclays U.S. Consumer Bank Travel Rewards and Loyalty Pulse Survey, that's quite a catchy title, suggest travelers increasingly view rewards as a practical payment tool, something they can deploy like a second currency for simpler, stress-free travel. And then they share the first couple of metrics here. In other words, when loyalty programs make it easy to redeem rewards for convenience, travelers lean in. 81% are more likely to upgrade if they can use points, especially for upgrades that reduce waiting, uncertainty, and stress. A clear preference for time back benefits, upgrades that remove pinch points rather than add luxury. Beyond paid upgrades, travelers are also making a self-help choices to avoid hassles. For example, 76% say they're likely to travel with only a carry-on to dodge checked bag fees, wait times, and lost luggage worries. That's even made more relevant nowadays when you have like the hiked up fuel prices for the airlines, and they kind of translate that directly into the first thing they did with their prices was to hike up the checked bag fees, most of them going up by like $10, $15, even $20 in some cases. But yeah, I think this just goes to show, I do love the sort of convenience argument that a lot of people make. I do think it is important. I've heard this really interesting quote from a LinkedIn post that was about the loyalty and the word just. And the word just making things, you know, simpler, making things dumbed down, saying, I just want to be able to skip the line at security. I just want a little bit of a free snack on my plane. I just want to, maybe wait at the lounge for an hour. I just want this. You know, it's like, it feels like that's one of those running things. And honestly, when you're traveling, I feel like a lot of people feel the same way. if I had had the option to use points to get myself a lounge at the Beijing airport, which, by the way, just hands down worst airport experience of my life so far, I would have done it in a heartbeat. But I was missing those points. So that's just one of the things. So are we all kind of in agreement here? Are there any like initial thoughts based on these first couple of metrics? Have you guys noticed this as well as frequent travelers? It's more about convenience over the luxury thing, or is it maybe a mixture of the two? Maybe Gianluca, I think you have some thoughts, maybe?
Yeah. Actually, the first thing that I can think of is I definitely feel it with a few of these things that are mentioned, 100%. And also with what you said, if I just can, and then ... make my life easier in some ways. But at the same time, I would say that there's somewhat of a line that they basically talk about how it's less about treat yourself and more about save me time, or less about the luxury, more about the convenience aspect. I would say that is, and in the loyalty space, and I mean also in episodes we've talked about previously, there's this line of, depending on which side of the line you are, in terms of, how should I put this? In terms of how much you pay for services. So whether you're already in the luxury segment, or whether you're in the not luxury segment, the smart segment. Sure, that's a good one actually. Yeah. In the smart segment, there you care more about certain things, because once you are in the luxury segment, all of these, if I could just get this or that is mostly convenience driven or convenience topics, they're already baked in, because you're already in that level where you do skip the lines. You do have more perks when it comes to carry-ons. You do have more perks with, let's say, you don't have to wait for the baggage because they pick it up for you directly. It's brought to you. You don't even have to wait in line. It's all these convenience factors are already baked into your tier, or you're already baked into the class that you booked specifically for travel. And therefore, you might want just that little extra luxury experience and not so much the convenience factor. If you are below that line, or let's say it's a gradient in the end. If you're in the lower gradient, then yes, if you don't have a skip the line perk, or if you don't have the someone's going to pick up your baggage for you perk, then of course you're going to say, hey, if only my points will get me to skip the line, or if only my points will give me the lounge access, or whatever it may be. So I think there it's again the perspective of where you're at, and the extra that you want is different based on what you already have or what you're already getting.
For sure. And I think the interesting part here also is the quote that's here from the head of US Cards and Partnerships at Barclays. He says, when card members can use points in the moments that matter, when they're rushed, standing in a line, or trying to keep a trip on track, that's when rewards become truly valuable. We've all felt this. Like I was literally just saying that in my like layover in Beijing. I would have paid so much more to get access to a lounge at that particular time, because China, so no internet, nothing was open because it was between midnight and 8 a.m. the layover, etc., etc. So stuff like that, those pain points. I guess it's really interesting because it sort of starts to then even touch on, like, you hear these topics. I studied business, and when they talk about marketing, they love to use supermarkets as an example. Like, the placements of various products at supermarkets are entirely intentional. Like, there's a very studied, researched reason that they put produce in the beginning, and that they put all of the really impulsive things that you would buy at the very end, like the cigarettes, the chocolates, the gums, and stuff like that. They know the way that their customers behave. And it feels like they're starting to get into that similar area here, where it's like, okay, this is a very clear pain point. Maybe we can like put a bigger focus on this area, maybe during boarding, or maybe people that have layovers or whatever. But yeah, let's hear some initial thoughts, Gabriele, from you. I mean, I'm guessing none of this is probably news to you, or is there anything that stands out here for you in particular?
I think that everyone likes convenience. So if you don't have to wait in a line, you're happy. If you, I don't know, get special treatments, you're happy. I think, again, depends a bit on your needs. For example, I love when I can save time. So I love when I know I don't have to come 2 hours before the flight or 3 hours before the flight to the airport. And then for example, I don't like at all to wait in lounges. I don't like at all to wait in general. So also spending, I don't know, 2 hours in a lounge is not at all me. Like I hate, I prefer to have fresh air before my flight, and mostly also before long flights. So like I use, for example, a lounge. I like the lounge access if I know there is a terrace or I can go outside. So I actually have some fresh air, and I also don't need to be there like for 2 hours or not even for an hour. And in the lounges, honestly, I have the feeling that people just go there to get smashed with food and drinks and to just get the most out of their business ticket or whatever they booked. What I love is, again, like a simple example, like if you have to check in your bags, you look at the economy line and you look at the business or first, basically business first, nobody's waiting there. So you literally check in your bags. You don't have to think about, hey, I have to come at least, I don't know, 2 hours before because there will be a huge line. And sometimes I saw lines where people were waiting like half an hour or more. And obviously there, the travel experience is completely different. Like your whole planning is different, right? And and that, from my perspective, that makes the travel experience completely different. Like I'll make it, like, just to give you a simple overview. Like, for example, Zurich, when I travel, there is you have the different parkings, right? Where you can, like, long stay parkings and so on, and then you have valet service directly in front of the check-in entry, basically, right? So already, if you book that one and you just drive in, you get out of your car, they take your car, you go, you check in. Obviously, if you can upgrade to business, you go to your check-in desk, you give your luggage, you go through the fast lane. So also there, you don't have to think about waiting half an hour at security. This literally saves you hours and hours if you fly a lot. Like, literally gives you life back. Because you don't have to wait. And if you count, I mean, if somebody flies a lot, I would say you spend days per year in waiting lines. So if you can gain those days back and you can do something productive, or just something that you like, I think that's a huge benefit. So, and obviously there airlines can play it in different ways. You get it by status, you get it by booking class. I think spending your points on it would be amazing. I think they don't do it because they would have an issue that too many people would do it, meaning that you would have then the same issue. So if, let's say, 20-30% of economy now would suddenly go to fast lane, you would have, I mean, if you just look at the plane, how many more people?
But I don't think that's a real argument. 100%. If they make the prices,
they had the issue already with lounges. They already had the issues with lounges. That's why a lot of
lounges, they're a bit too lenient. That's for sure.
The status much more difficult to get, because you were easily, if you get, I don't know, frequent flyer, for example, with miles or more, you get into you can get into the lounge, right? So obviously, if you get that status too fast, you have. And honestly, I think the same. Like when I go into certain lounges, they're super overcrowded. Like you
agreed.
barely find a place to sit. I'm not saying that the food is empty and so on, but like it doesn't give you, honestly, a feeling of luxury. And I mean, with certain prices, like when I compare sometimes the prices, I mean, again, I'm lucky I can book with miles in most cases, so I don't have to pay. But I always check the full price. And when I look at the full price that you pay, it's literally crazy. Like I mean, we're in Switzerland, so Switzerland, so it's anyways, like flying from Zurich is super expensive, but it's just like, I don't know, it doesn't really fit from my perspective. Like, you pay so much for the flight, which would give you a luxury experience, and then you go into the lounge and it's like super full. honestly, also depending on the lounge, some lounges are really like disaster. Like from the
You're better off at the gate. Yeah,
no, really from the food that they offer and all of that stuff. So like it really depends how which lounges you use, etc. But for me personally, I love the time saving aspect. So as soon as I can save time, and I mean this happens even in like I talked a few times about it, like a grocery store here in Zurich where I often go. And there, since I go more often, I have basically a certain status, and it's actually a mall, so it's not just supermarket, but you can buy all kinds of things there, from clothes to I don't know, kitchen appliances and all of that stuff, right? So you're able to, like, if you use that mall well, you're actually able to get a good status, right? And small things like I arrive there, I don't have to check for a parking. I just leave my car at the valet service.
That is nice.
That saves me already the time. And if you go on a Saturday, there's literally a line of cars waiting out of the parking space, right?
garage.
So already that saves me so much time. Then I had so many times where, since people know me by now there, that basically there was huge lines at the cashiers, and then they literally came like to me, like, no worries, I'll open up a new cashier for you.
Ah,
I didn't have to wait. Or I go to the support and like, guys, can I pay here quickly? Yes, of course you can pay here. So that's like stuff that honestly saves you a massive amount of time. Like literally, where other people need an hour to make their grocery shopping, I do that in like 20 minutes because I don't have to wait in front of the parking. I don't have to wait for the cashier. So that stuff I really love because it really saves time. And for me, that's one of the greatest perks. So I think saving time and
Yeah.
saving money, that's for me the two biggest pain points, in that sense, that can be relieved with the loyalty program. The lounge access and having that extra, I don't know, luxury feeling, I don't really care about. Like I want to, like, if I fly, I want to sleep well, I want to save time, I want to save money.
To go on a slight tangent, based on your point about the grocery store that you go to and the priority treatment, you'll recall maybe episode 1 or 2, we talked about coalition rewards programs, and you talked about how you weren't necessarily a fan, and this sort of starts to help me understand why a little bit, because the grocery store that I go to, Edeka, is a payback partner, so you get payback points. And that's great and that's cool, but they don't have any sort of like systems like that sort of prioritize the guest. It's just a point system basically, right? There's nothing about giving advantages to people and everything. And I feel like if there is a store, that's where there's like the extra advantage. If a grocery chain or a mall or whatever then implements their own system, they can tailor it so much more to be so much more rewarding and nice and like a better experience to their actual regular customers. Whereas for me, then the experience becomes a bit more emotionless and a little bit more transactional. You know, it's like a completely different vibe. So just interesting realization there.
But at the end of the day, it's also like, I think we have to be aware. It's like kind of everyone has to be aware that like the more money you spend, the more you get. So if you look at saving money, saving time, and saving not even saving, but getting like that additional treatment or additional goodies, right? Like the lounge access and all of that stuff. I think it is involved with, like you don't go around spending a lot of money in that sense with certain things if you want to gain from all of those benefits, right? I mean, that's why like business people that fly a lot, as an example, if you get into the Horn Circle of Miles and More, I mean, that's a completely different experience. Like literally you have the first class or Horn Circle check-in, which is a completely different entry and everything. You have completely different lounge with even more goodies and so on. They drive you to the airplane, so you don't have to walk. Actually, they drive you to the airplane. They have their own. They have their own security. They have their own security part. So you basically do check-in, and then you have right away security. Then you go into the lounge, and then they pick you up from the lounge and drive you to the airplane. You can even say, I want to get in as last or as first in the airplane. So
A boarding chauffeur. Damn.
you don't get you don't get that stuff by flying twice a year. Also, if you fly twice a year first, yeah, you have that experience during first, but not like when you fly economy, for example, right? So it is connected to spending a huge amount of money, and but the fun thing, actually, now I have to contradict myself. There are actually cheat codes, I would say, where you can get a similar experience. So, for example, Airport Dubai, that is really, really cool. There is a service called Maraba service, something like that. And you basically get kind of the first class treatment with like $70. So you can book a service where you get out of the plane, right? So you're in front of the gate when you get out, and then there is a guy waiting there with your name. They wait with a little cart, with the little what do you call it?
Yeah, the cart.
Yeah, like the cart. So they drive. You don't have to walk. They drive you. They go with you through immigration. So it's like fast lane. They literally walk with you to the immigration counter. You're the only one there. It's like super fast track. They pick up your baggages, as Gianluca said, and so on. And in theory, if you think about it, like if you spend, I don't know, let's say from Zurich to Dubai, you spend $1,000 for the economy ticket. Adding another $70 is not like a huge amount, but you completely change your experience.
It's a no-brainer for a lot of people. Yeah,
but a lot of people don't know it. Like I literally found it out when we made an upgrade with the family with Miles at the check-in desk, and then we actually saw that service, and then I Googled it. I went on their page. I was like, oh shit! Like you can book that stuff for like $70, and you have like the full first class treatment, and you can fly whatever you want at the end of the day, right? So there are some cheat codes how you can, let's say, optimize your experience. It takes just a bit of research time and just being a bit more prepared for those. Like if I would travel with kids, for example, I would always book that. Always.
Oh yeah, totally. And just to be clear, there are entire communities built around trying to find some of these like little travel hacks and like little loopholes in there that can get you the most out of like the least amount of effort or contributions or whatever it is. So that's also very interesting.
Yeah, and it depends actually also a lot about the how the airport is set up. So for example, I mean, Dubai, honestly, for me is one of the best airports in the world, if not the best one that I have ever been. They're like last actually in January when I flew to Dubai, I didn't I mean, I not always booked that $70 thing. Like I did maybe 2-3 times, but then I forgot to do it, and I arrived at the airport, and then it was a huge line for immigration. I was like, no, I don't want to do this. And then literally the counter of the service was right in front of immigration. So and then I asked someone, I was like, hey, how can I get fast lane? They're like, yeah, just go at the counter. I paid $20. And I was able to skip the whole line and just walk through, like straight forward to the immigration counter. That is really cool stuff.
For sure. And just to add the other side of it, though, I'm still sort of on the budget travel side. So on my side, I mean, it does also, like when you talk about brand loyalty and like feeling special belonging to a certain airline and getting some of these services, you do notice that if you're like me, you know, traveling coach and doing everything normally, and then you're standing at the back of one of these hour-long lines or 2-hour-long lines, and you see the nice, you know, handsome person walking forward who goes to the other counter and just goes straight through. You do notice, like your gut instinct, you know, it's human. It's a human reaction. It's like, I want that. That's awesome. You know, and it's sort of, it makes you kind of aspire to getting there, which is really cool.
Honestly, it's literally just preparation or asking or just asking. I mean, being a bit like, how do you say that?
Inquisitive.
Not inquisitive, but you know, like just not accepting that you have to wait. Like again, last time when I was in Dubai, I would have had to go through the normal line. I was like, no, I don't do this at all. And then I literally just asked, hey, how can I pass through fast lane? And then the guy was like, yeah, look, there you can go. And I mean, again, like obviously you don't do that if you pay a flight like, I don't know, $100 or $200, right?
Yeah.
And then you add another $20 or $30. Yeah, that like it's basically 10-20% more, right? But if you go and you say, you know what, you anyways, I mean, if you take a flight to Dubai from Zurich in coach, you spend $1,000. Like it will be difficult that you get it for less, right? So if you just have then that additional experience at the immigration where you pay $20 more, which is 2% more of what you actually spent, right? So we're not talking about you have to spend another $500 on having the fast lane process, right? It just saves you so much time in that moment. It saves you so much nerves. I think that's the almost more important time, because waiting an hour in the line at immigration, who likes to do that? And a lot of people, I think they would actually pay $20 to do it, but they just don't ask. They just don't know. They just accept the fact that I have to wait an hour in line. And there, I think if you are more, just if you are more like asking for that stuff and just you want that and you just go and try to figure out how to do it. I also got it for free last time when I flew back to Zurich. I literally just didn't want to wait at the immigration and at security, and I literally asked so many times the staff there. I was like, no, I can go. I mean, I was in a good mood. I was after dinner, so I had a couple of glasses of wine, and I literally didn't stop asking until they're like, you know what? Yeah, you can go faster. I didn't pay anything.
Leave me alone.
Just go. I didn't pay anything. It's security. I even almost got the staff entry because I stressed them. So I was like, I don't want to wait here. And they're like, no, you can go fast lane.
Lessons for everybody traveling. Just annoy the staff long enough that they'll eventually let you through. Oh, that's awesome. And it is interesting that like it does become more important the more you travel, obviously, right? If I always compare it with like my dad, who's like constantly on the road and everything, and for me, who flies maybe once or twice a year, I still get excited when I'm in an airport or when I'm going through security or stuff like that. Like for me, that's still like an event, you know, and I go through and it's kind of fun. If I talk to my dad about it, it's the most miserable, like time-consuming, I wish I never had to do it again experiences of his life as like a frequent flyer. It's actually crazy how the attitude towards it kind of changes depending on like how frequently you actually travel. I would love to see a curve, a graph of what that like actually looks like, you know, how many times you travel per year versus general like enjoyment of the entire process. But of course, as you continue to want to avoid these things, that's when it becomes more important. And that's the perfect segue to a couple of these other stats that we can like fast forward through, talking about the most in-demand upgrades. And these are very interesting. I mean, obviously, like it's exactly what we've been talking about. So 68% say expedited security, 67% early or late hotel check-in or check-out, 66% skip the line access. So literally, like our last 20 minutes have just been talking about that essentially. 62% priority boarding. So once again, the Barclays guy says, travelers aren't just chasing free trips anymore. They're using points to make the whole experience better. Getting through the airport faster, boarding sooner, leveraging early or late hotel check-ins, and taking some of the stress out of the travel day. It's very interesting. And I would love to maybe hear from you guys, like, number one, is this just a very normal sort of progression of these systems? Like as they get more advanced, as the data collection gets more precise, that they say, okay, maybe we have a much better, more regular sort of, use of people's points, whereas before they would only be able to use them for an upgrade or for booking a flight or something like that, that now they're putting more of a priority towards, like it says here, the overall experience. Is this just a natural progression? Are we going to see that happening more and more? And maybe, I mean, on the other hand, maybe it is because I don't know if people are flying more or less than usual, but maybe having some of these options where people can spend maybe not a crazy amount of points, but like a regular amount of points for some of these smaller perks. I mean, what do you think? Like, what's the main reasoning behind all of this? Is this like customer demand that they're trying to satisfy? I could imagine that being the case, that they have surveys and they ask, hey, what would be like the one thing that you would give points for to skip? And it would be, security and lines and whatever.
I mean, I was gonna ask this. Are these numbers based on a survey that they did, because I wonder what airline, at least I don't know of any, where you can there's a little menu. Hey, you want expedited security, you want early, okay, late hotel checkout, that's not even travel specific in airports and so on, skip the line or priority boarding. I haven't seen
EasyJet.
something like that.
EasyJet. I remember when I was flying a few times
Yeah,
with
okay,
EasyJet,
EasyJet maybe, yeah.
you were able to
'Cause
book a normal flight, like a normal seat, right? And then you were able to book the premium version.
add-ons.
Basically gave you expedited, like fast lane security,
Yeah.
gave you priority boarding,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
I mean, that's the only thing that I would say makes sense, because, and honestly, that's also one of those things that loyalty programs should go into more, is finding all these things that customers want or members want and making it more granular. Because also here, if just on a base level, if they would open up all these options as single options that you can pay with points, let's not assume how many points, but let's just say you can buy them with points, it would also be an amazing way of burning through points and making points less liable for essentially nothing. Because expedited security is not like there's a massive added cost to that. That lane, the airport manages how many lanes are open and are being open. It's not even the loyalty program's decision, but the airport manages that. So you're essentially just saying these people can now go there, skip the lines. Okay, depends on where it is. Priority boarding also there. I would say the only thing that they're essentially then balancing is how much these things cost, so that people would want to use them and would be able to use them, but at the same time doesn't piss off anyone else that is in a higher tier and has those perks baked in to what they paid for in cash. Because obviously, if I'm business, if I'm first and I pay a certain amount to have this treatment, I don't want everyone else to pay a few points and get in. At the same time, I also don't believe that they would, if this was a possibility, they would make it so that everyone could get these perks by simply flying 1 or 2 times coach. Because even if I just think miles and more now, a Europe flight brings you approximately 250 to 750 miles, approximately. That's what I remember last. I'm not sure if maybe it changed a bit. With that, you don't do anything. You literally, it's like I found a penny on the floor. Like,
No, it depends.
okay, cool.
You don't know the dynamic pricing that they have right now. You get like, I saw last time a flight, London, Singapore, with Singapore Airlines for 500 miles.
Okay, well, how rare is that?
Not that rare, seriously. Like you just have to, basically you have to fly when they want you to fly. So if you have
exactly,
schedule,
but on a that for sure, of course.
I'm
But
just
that's
saying,
what I
like,
mean. That makes it rare. That makes it rare, because it doesn't mean I just now decide I want to fly to Singapore from London on a Monday or a Sunday.
It doesn't work for business people that actually have
Exactly.
meetings that they
But
have.
that's what we're not talking about that. We're not talking. Business has skipped the line. Business has priority lane. Business has priority boarding. It's about, let's be real. It's more about because again, that's why I'm saying there's a line or a threshold where those perks are just simply baked in. And then convenience is your reality. It's, if you're flying first, you don't have to worry about Merhaba service. You don't have to worry about paying in miles for an add-on like that. You already are treated with the maximum convenience and maximum time saving, right?
10x to 15x more
Yeah,
than
100%. But that's what I'm saying. It's baked in to your experience, right? So those customers, they wouldn't be seeking for this because they have it, right? So this is more so for the ones who don't have it baked into their experience. Would they be willing to pay? And I assume that's what the article is saying. 65% would pay extra in miles to get those. And that's why I also smirked a bit when you said, yeah, and then you have everyone from economy going through the business lane. My thought is, what price you give. Because
Correct.
if I'm a coach flyer and I fly 10 times, and with those 10 flights, I accumulate exactly the amount for one time going through business, I'm probably going to think twice if I want to spend it on a one-time convenience, or if I can possibly fly to Singapore for 500 miles. Because if I have to pay, let's say, 5,000 miles to just one time be on a fast track path through the whole airport, I'll probably think twice. Because I'm not sure if 5K would be worth it. It took me 10 flights to get there, you know?
It depends. If you're there with a family and 3 kids and so on,
Yeah,
and
that 100%.
kids
But it's a
are
one-time
crying,
thing.
and your wife is stressed because the kids are crying, and you just want to get to the hotel because you're also tired.
Of course.
Flight
But
and
what
everything.
I'm meaning to say is, I don't think it would be an occurrence that literally on a daily basis you have economy members going, you know what, I want business now, here's my miles. They will run out of miles so fast that they would not be able to keep up with the convenience, I imagine, because otherwise everyone would be pissed off. If they made the prices so accessible in miles that anyone in economy at any moment can decide, I'm going to go fast track now, and I'm part of the business of, there's no fast track anymore. Yeah.
But
so
I think honestly,
it's a game, but it's like that's why I go back to also what we discussed last episode, or at least what I was my point with these loyalty programs, especially when it's points based and you get conveniences or you get experiences with it, and especially how in so many articles that we read, a lot of people are saying, hey, it's too easy to buy your tiers, it's too easy to buy your status, it's too easy to buy your like this lifestyle or these experiences. It's in the end literally just a balance. It's a game balance. Like every other game that has been built, there's mechanics, there's dynamics, there's certain things you can do, and now it's up to the game master or the loyalty program to balance the point expenditure with the experiences, with knowing that there's tiers that are being paid for in money, that are being paid for in flights that not everyone gets. So you can't offer perks that they get too easily to other people. So it's literally a fine balance of, it's a demand and we will give supply, but the supply needs to be also hard enough to get that not every demand is satisfied, because otherwise coach would just migrate into the business or first class experience. Talking about flying.
All right.
Obviously,
just for the record, we'll give Gabriele a final word on this, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
Okay.
All right.
I just want to say, like, I think there are 2 main issues. One is the tech side, because basically all of these conveniences beside early check-in and late check-out are all also depending on systems at the airport itself. So when you when you're at the security, like before security, you have to scan your boarding pass. So it recognizes, you can actually go fast lane or not. You have boarding, like you have groups, basically groups that make, for example, or depending on when you can board, etc. And I think it's super difficult for airlines to actually manage all these conveniences on demand. So if I'm there at the check-in, for example in Zurich, and I suddenly say, you know what, actually I want to have fast track, I'll buy quickly the fast track. This needs also to translate on my boarding pass, and it needs to work with the system at the airport. And then,
of course,
obviously, as an airline, if you serve 100 airports, you need to make the integration with 100 airports. Mm-hmm. And you need to be able to actually change that logic on demand. And I think that's the more difficult part, because you have a lot of in-between classes. And the other thing is balancing actually the price, because if it's too cheap, doesn't matter if in mile or in cash, everybody will do it. If it's too high, nobody will do it. So you have to strike the right balance that you actually generate more revenue out of it as an airline. At the same time, you don't piss off a business or a first customer because they suddenly have to wait so much time in line, right? So or at the boarding, etc. So I think it's those 2 topics that are difficult to manage. That's why we don't see that a lot. or it is more airport related, like Dubai. It's not airline related. It doesn't really matter with which airline you arrive. You
Yeah,
can use
exactly.
the service you paid at the airport. It's fully integrated with the services at the airport, and you can just get it done, right? But not every. I mean, in Zurich there is, yeah, you can get the first class treatment, but I think it costs you $500 per person. So like that's a price that then people say, you know, "Oh, no, if I fly economy and I pay 1,000, now I have to add up a 500 to just have some convenience." Doesn't really make sense. So I think it's more that balancing the pricing side, and on the other side, balancing, not balancing, but having all the tech integrations needed to actually make it happen.
All right. We'll go over a couple of these last statistics, and then we'll have some final questions on this. And then I think we'll move on to the next topic because, yes, it is just about time to do so. But first of all, a couple of interesting statistics. I mean, on this side, it's almost more consensus than statistics when you look at the percentages here. But I think, I mean, yeah, they ask a lot of no-brainers, essentially, just to and then they see how much they agree with them. But I mean, honestly, you know, Gianluca, what can you say about the Barclays U.S. Consumer Bank Travel Rewards and Loyalty Pulse Survey, the BUSCBTRALPS for sure? Sorry, I love that title. It's fantastic.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I have to laugh at the first two. To me, they seem very much the same. Comfort and convenience leads the way. Relaxation matters just as much.
Yeah. Who's to say comfort and convenience cannot also be relaxing? Who knew? Oh my God.
Right.
Connection and quality time, also 95%. Exploration and new experiences, 91%. Not even 100% sure what that one means. Budget and value for money, 88%. Yeah, kind of interesting. It makes me want to look into like the deeper survey and actually see how the question was worded. It's like, when you're flying, do you want comfort and convenience? It's like, obviously, I would be more curious to know about the 4% that said no to that rather than anything else. But we can actually continue to go on because there are still some slightly interesting statistics. Namely, if we go over then to the final page in here, where there's a bit of an onslaught here when it comes to the statistics. But the interesting thing is, when you frame it as reducing stress, the yes becomes more emphatic. Travelers are most open to paying a bit more for. So I guess here the question is, would you be willing to pay more for? And in this case, the winner is clearly expedited security, which again, as like an infrequent traveler like myself, I'm not so sure that I would say yes to that. Sorry?
I love that experience.
So we got early check-ins, late checkouts. We got skip the line access, priority boarding. Priority boarding I also don't get because I'm very much in the camp of just like sit for as long as humanly possible, and once the line is gone, then you go up. I'm that guy. But hey, I mean, it's
for the baggages. That's the issue.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. Yeah, true. And then they've got the high-speed internet, which for me would actually probably be number one. Just because in airlines, still the internet tends to be quite poor, unfortunately. And then they've got lounge access. Then to go in for the final group of stats here, the report also found that people adapting their habits to make travel easier. You have the winners: carry-on only, early mornings at attractions to beat the crowds, noise-canceling headphones, dupe. I mean, this, I guess, is a little bit less related, but it's more, I guess, to give like a general picture of what people tend to prioritize when they're trying to avoid these pain points. Yeah, for carry-on only, I do sort of understand that. Sorry?
It's an interesting one. Never heard that. Dupe destinations to dodge crowds and control costs. I assume that means if like, I don't know, this summer everyone's going to City A, you go to City B so that you have...
Which is a similar experience, but less popular. Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Interesting. I never heard that term.
I only heard it recently. But yeah, it's totally relevant. So like, you know, everybody goes to Japan, but if you go to Korea or whatever, you end up, you know, it is slightly less crowded and you end up with a similar experience.
Asia.
Yeah. Pretty much.
If you go to North Korea, you won't have any crowd waiting.
That's true. Very
Free
true.
roads.
Maybe a final question. When we were talking about these points for sort of quality of life improvements, Gabriela, you mentioned that EasyJet is kind of like the number, was kind of the one of the first things that came to mind. Are they just yeah? So are they like the pioneers of this? Is this like something that you guys think should be then the standard for airlines moving forward, or is this more something that's better suited for maybe some of these like budget airlines and things like that? Like, are there any strong thoughts about this whole thing in particular? Because clearly there is a good chunk of travelers that want a lot of these things and would be willing to pay their points for these things. But like you guys said, like we're not actually necessarily seeing that with all of the airlines currently. So is there like a very specific market for this, or do you guys see this as just the beginning of a trend that we're going to maybe see grow over time? What would be the general thoughts about the potential future of, basically schemes like this to give points for skipping waiting times and baggage check-ins and stuff like that?
Honestly, difficult to say. I mean, so for example, if you look at the second point there, early check-in, late check-out, right? So at least late check-out, I know from various hotels, because I specifically asked, hey, like, can you give me late checkout? Then they said, for example, yeah, we can give you until 1, for example, or 2 p.m., etc. And then let's say I had the flight at 8 p.m. in the evening. So I asked, okay, like, how much would it cost, for example, if I want to have the room until 6 p.m., right? And they actually have, for example, hourly rates, but they're so expensive that I never actually used it. So there are, let's say, at least certain hotels, they already do it, where basically you can literally extend your late checkout by just paying money, right? I think, again, it's really a balance of pricing here, because you need to find out, say, from 100 people that don't have these services included in their class fee, right? So let's take expedited security, so fast lane, basically. If you take those people that don't have it, right, from 100, in theory, you want to have a maximum of people that pay that ticket, right? So you don't want all 100 to pay that ticket, because otherwise, first off, the economy line is empty and the business line is super full, right? So people that maybe paid 3x more than economy or 5x more than economy, then they have to wait basically have to wait there. So I think it's really a pricing topic that it's super difficult for airlines to strike the right price at the right moment, because it's depending on how full, like, first off, what is the destination? Second, how full is that airplane? Third, how many people do you think would come over, and so on. So like there are multiple criteria to actually find the right pricing. I think kind of it's a no-brainer to do it, because you give additional services to your customers, right? And you can gain additional revenue. So kind of a no-brainer. But I think the complexity of finding the right balance, like also Gianluca said, that is really, really the hard part. Plus then technical integration, in the sense that you also have that smooth user experience at the airport, that everything works fine, and that all the steps are fully integrated, because it goes from check-in to security to gate, etc. So you really need those different integrations to be, let's say, working well. So no-brainer on one side. I think execution is much more complex than we imagine now.
But then in the EasyJet example, is that, I mean, I don't know if there's any statistics out there to show if this...
So yeah, I was going to say that the execution part is probably not a big deal if it's just before the whole experience.
Yeah,
starts.
obviously.
If it's during,
obviously.
then it's a different story. But I think we don't have to necessarily take that into account, because I doubt that the survey speaks about when it's happening. Like, when do the people want expedited security? It's not like when they're in the line they want it. It's just beforehand, I assume.
Arno just started this topic with "I just want," right? Okay, "I just want" comes always with some implications, and the thing is that as an airline, like, I mean, look at the different group and the classes that you can book, right? They have a huge amount of differences there. Even like if you for example, Swiss, if you book economy, but you book it with the green fare, right? With the basically the CO that you balance out CO2, you're already a bit of a higher class than if you just book like economy saver, right, or economy light. So there are huge differences, and I think that's a bit the issue, that it brings in so much complexity into their whole revenue yield management and booking classes and so on, that's where the issue a bit stands. I think if airports would do that, it would be much easier. Like Dubai does it. Like you have Marhaba service, and literally you can buy all the steps to basically get faster, like get expedite security, immigration faster, etc., etc. So yeah, I think it's a no-brainer on one side. If you think then about execution, how to actually make it happen, it's much more difficult if you don't have it from the beginning. So I think EasyJet, and again, like during my student times, that is quite a bit of time, like it's like 15 years ago or more, getting old. Basically, there you were able to book it from the beginning, but it was kind of the business. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't called business, and they like you don't have the special business seats and so on, but you have kind of these premium services where you were able to get like a seat more in front of the airplane, early boarding, all of that stuff. So obviously, if you do it from the beginning, then and again, like I really have to say, it's kind of, they don't sell it as business seat; they just sell it as a premium economy ticket if you want so. So I think that's where the difference lies. If you want to pick and choose what you actually want, that's much more complex.
I do like the idea in general too of like having the airports do this rather than the airlines. That feels like it makes a lot of geographical sense. Like if they were to suddenly open up something like that for Munich airport, I would also do that in a heartbeat. Don't discount the Munich airport, by the way. Also a top tier airport. Also one of my favorite ones. But
if you fly Lufthansa, then you have the amazing part. When I flew Emirates from Munich, I'm like, what is this? Like the
Terminal
whole
2. You have to stick to Terminal 2.
You look left, you look right. It's like, okay. And then you see an A380 waiting outside. And literally, like when I was there, the wing was, I think, 5 meters away from the window.
Oh, damn.
So literally, I was like, what is going on here? It's such a tiny terminal for like all the non-Lufthansa airlines.
Yeah, which is Terminal 1. So you want to stick to Terminal 2.
It's super efficient to fly from. Like prices, Munich airport are the best. I checked out multiple airports in Germany to fly to Dubai, and that one is honestly the most efficient.
Yeah, it's a good destination to fly from for sure, especially if you're looking for direct flights and things like that.
100%.
Gianluca, do you have any final contributions for this topic before we move on to the next one?
Oh, I think we covered pretty much everything. Excited for the next one.
Very nice. Sounds good. So with no further ado, we're going to continue on. We do have another article, or did have another article to share that is about this particular topic. So seeing points as a payment structure. We didn't have time to get through it, but we'll make sure to add the link to it in the description below. We always add the sources to the articles that we talk about. So if this is something that interests you, you can always hop right in there and just make yourself a little bit wiser to this topic, because it feels like it might just be the beginning, especially with the way that people are, maybe through agents and AI, being able to, finding themselves able to implement some of these structures a little bit more easily, or just finding them a little bit more reachable. Maybe we'll see more of this stuff in the future. Who knows? So we will see. But for now, continuing on this sort of trend of people taking their points a lot more seriously, we have the following topic. So we were in airlines mostly now, and now we are moving over to hotels. The two big industries when it comes to loyalty programs and points nowadays, actually since they existed, really. But the title of this is Loyalty Programs Are Becoming a Primary Driver of Hotel Choice and Booking Behavior. So once again, marking a significant shift in the attitude towards which people approach their points. It used to be a nice on top. It used to be oh, cool, I get 1 or 2 of these points for staying here. Isn't that nice? primary driver indicates that when people are searching through a city that they want to travel to, they actually look at the rewards program first and foremost. And I think this is made easier nowadays when you even have these integrations into ChatGPT. We've seen, all of these different hotel chains that are integrating in there, where if you want to ask ChatGPT, and you can see the customer saying this, like I would do this too, give me a list of interesting hotels. I'm a member of Hilton, I'm a member of Marriott or whatever. Where can I also then get the best value for points? Or where can I earn the most points given I'm staying at this and this date range? So maybe that's a little bit of a contributing factor. Maybe I'm digging a little too deep into it. Who knows? But they are becoming a primary driver of hotel choice. And to move just directly onto the first text here, it is kind of interesting. So you have the Global Hotel Alliance. Did some research. And based on responses from more than 9,000 travelers worldwide, shows that 87% prefer hotels with a global loyalty program to similar properties without one. This preference underscores the growing role of loyalty in shaping not only repeat stays, but also initial booking decisions across multiple markets. I mean, right off the bat, I can already pick Gabriela's brain and yours, Gianluca, about this, because this is kind of literally the business that we're in right now, is giving people sort of access to said global loyalty programs. So what are one of the, I mean, maybe we can either talk about anecdotes or you can talk about business and demand. Like, what's the sort of response that you've been seeing when you are on a call, for example, with a hotel that don't have one of these programs, and they are suddenly given access to, they suddenly hear, oh, hey, we can connect you with an entity like Miles and More or something like that. I'm sure the response is probably large. I mean, case in point, we're here. So how is the experience? Like, how is this, maybe Gabriela, this 87 percentile that you see here? I think that makes it kind of obvious and almost a consensus rather than a statistic that people would prefer a hotel with a loyalty program over a property without one. What are some initial thoughts that you have here? Is this just kind of an obvious statement in your opinion? How does this then underline the use case? I can even bring in the business a little bit, when it comes to Kibi, how does this sort of underline what we're doing? Would love to hear some initial thoughts on this topic.
I mean, I think the first part is really what kind of customers are you targeting? If you go into the premium luxury segment, that is super obvious, like what is written here, right? Because let's say, I remember that term of my economic studies, price list. I can't say it, price. Thank you. Basically, obviously, someone that is more restricted from a budget perspective, very simple. You go into booking, you search for your destination, you basically, how do you say? You sort by price, and you start with the cheapest first and most expensive last, right? And people that basically have a budget constraint, or not even a constraint, they're just more budget aware. Let's call it like that. They look at, okay, what is my budget? Which hotel looks kind of fine that basically covers my needs, right? And where do I get the best price value ratio, right? Now, if you go into premium luxury segment, it shifts because people then they actually have much more expectations in the whole travel experience, right? So there, the loyalty program becomes much more relevant because people then tend to want more perks, as we just discussed before, early check-in, late check-out. I mean, who actually wants to wait in a hotel reception for like 3 hours until the room is getting ready? Nobody really wants that. Or if you have a flight late in the evening and you have to check out at 12, and you have to hang out the whole day around. Yeah, of course you can leave your luggage, blah, blah, blah. But it's just like those small things that take away flexibility, that I think in the premium luxury segment are very valued. Like having that flexibility, having that freedom, saving time, and just getting that special treatment, right? So I think those 9,000 travelers that they asked are more in the premium luxury segment. because otherwise you wouldn't have 87% of people that actually say, hey, a loyalty program makes sense for me. I mean, by now, like I'm Marriott Gold Elite, for example, I only book Marriott. I literally, the first thing I do is I go on Marriott, I check out there the prices and so on. And if I have the feeling I don't find the right hotel with the right price, then I switch to Booking, and I check out there what kind of hotels are free. But it honestly pains me. Like it really pains me that I have to book a hotel that I don't earn nights, that I don't earn points, and so on, because it feels like wasted money, kind of.
Yeah.
And it's like you don't get the same treatment. Like if I get into Marriott, literally you don't even have to ask about early check-in or late checkout. They just give it to you. So like even that right there, you don't have to ask that question. It's like just baked in. You arrive whenever you arrive, and they're like, "Yeah, your room is ready." That is a different. That is really a different kind of experience, right? So I think it has a lot to do with that. And when you're serving premium luxury customers, then your loyalty program needs to be top notch. You need to exactly know what your customers want. You need to give them the freedom, all the perks, etc., etc. And obviously, also there, like if you have customers that always book a suite, yeah, they just have a better status, they have better perks, etc., etc. So I think it makes absolute sense what they say here. It's more focused on luxury and premium. If you would make the 9,000 travelers that are more budget travelers, you will basically get 13% prefer a hotel with a loyalty program.
30, like 30.
No, 1-3. Basically, the difference to my gut feeling,
because they don't care. They just want the cheapest available room or something. Like
I
that's all
think
they
so,
care
yeah.
about.
I think so, yeah.
Mhm.
Somebody that spends a lot of money, like even if you're in ultra high net worth and people that really spend a lot of money, they don't have an issue to pay, I don't know, 3K a night, right, for a room, and they stay. I mean, there are people in this world that make holidays where they're a week away and they spend 100K, right? So
Mhm.
even those people actually care about the rewards and the perks, because the more you actually spend, the more you say, hey, why am I actually wasting money on that stuff? I'm wasting money in the sense that why am I not looking for getting the most value out of it? If I'm anyway spending so much money, I get so much faster to a certain tier, to a certain amount of points where I can get upgrades to suite, etc., etc. So I think it gets even more relevant. Obviously, also there, I think there is a limit. I don't think that a Jeff Bezos, a Elon Musk, or a Mark Zuckerberg care about their loyalty programs because it's minimal.
They also don't go to hotels, most likely.
Yeah.
Yeah, also, and they fly private.
I'm
That's
sure
why,
that
like,
wherever they go, they have a place that
yeah, if you
they're
fly,
taken care of.
if you fly private, and you always take your basically holiday, holiday or whatever it is, like not a hotel, but like a house, an apartment, and so on, then it's not really relevant. But there's kind of a segment that actually cares a lot about it.
You think that's gonna change Gabriela's perception of loyalty programs too, when he starts flying private everywhere and just stays at villas all the time and just is,
No,
I
would
don't
support.
know these points. I don't use them. I don't use them anymore. I've outgrown these points.
No,
First class? What is first class?
no,
Never heard
there is actually a story about a guy, also a billionaire. He bought a building in New York, and he paid like the price of the building was 65 million, and was it 65? Yeah, I think it was 65. Yeah, because he basically said he asked his credit card company if he can buy the building with the credit card. And they asked him, but why did you want to buy with the credit card? Like, yeah, I mean, first off, I get points. Second, I get 1% cash back. That's 650K. So,
That's not
I mean,
nothing. Yeah.
if you look at it like this, yeah, there is a huge amount of value thinking about points, and because 650K is still 650K. I mean, you like even if you're a billionaire, you don't say like, yeah, you know what, fuck 650K, because you're still
Yeah.
aware. I mean, if you're a billionaire, you're aware of money. So
Yeah, I was gonna say you're the most likely is just for the fact that you're thinking it's a money transfer in one way or another.
right,
Let me
yeah,
at least make it go through the path that also gives something back to me. If the rest is
100%, yeah, 100%.
just money flow, right? Might as well
So you
get
see at that
1%
example,
on on a if 1% on payment is what you get back, in and of itself, using that path to pay is an investment that makes sense.
100%. Gianluca, do you have anything to add to the statistics that we're seeing here before we continue?
I was just gonna say it's funny because just before the podcast, I was talking to my fiance and we were talking about how some friends of hers they basically optimize. There's like these. I have the feeling there's these two major groups in loyalty. It's the ones that optimize for specific programs. So like Gabriel is talking about it, he's with Marriott, so it makes sense to continuously go to Marriott hotels because you keep stacking up your track record in that loyalty program. And I mean, it is called a loyalty program, so you're literally stacking your loyalty proof to them and getting more and more perks out of it. And who knows, in the future where they separate more tiers or they add more perks, you're essentially showing that you're loyal to the program, so you're honed in on that, right? And then there's the other group, which is more, how can you leverage any and all loyalty programs at any at all times so that you get the best value in that moment that you need it, right? And there you're not so much loyal to one loyalty program, but rather you say, you know what, there's a promotion on this hotel. I'm going to go there because I'm going to get the best value in that moment, regardless of whether I have the highest tier here or there. That in that specific moment is just the best value because they have a promotion going, right?
Which then brings up the whole question that we always ask ourselves about, like, what actual loyalty really means in this case.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we were talking about it, and I was also telling her my perspective, at least, and the friends she was talking about, they're more so about, okay, we have one card for this specific use case that we use. We have another credit card that's very good for this use case. So they have various loyalty programs and various options that basically they use to optimize aspects of their life and their spending. And besides the fact that to me it's also just more management, which I usually tend to not prefer. I prefer to streamline and simplify. But I was also speaking specifically about that, how I find that, I mean, this is just my opinion, I have no data on this specifically, but I find it valuable to stack up the loyalty proof within one program and get as far as possible or as much as possible in it, because it usually opens up doors. Like, if you become a Han member in Miles and More, in the Miles and More loyalty program, you're just treated differently. You automatically get upgrades. You automatically get perks that others just don't get. And that is not something you get by saying, one time I fly like this, one time I fly like that, because in that moment I have the better value. It's also like a long-term investment that you say, I'm going to be loyal to this program so that I can get to that tier. I can get to that level where I am being treated differently than everyone else. And so to this 87% that prefer hotels with global loyalty program, I'm totally with it, because if you know that no matter where you go, there's a hotel that is part of that loyalty program that you are in, and you can just keep getting points, you can keep racking up those nights, and eventually you will be a higher tier. Why ever think about going to a different hotel or to a hotel that doesn't offer that loyalty program? So I'm 100% with it. Yeah.
Let me ask then a little follow-up here, because going into the 87%, I would love to pause just a little bit on the word global. Is there then an innate advantage in being part of this global loyalty program? Like, is a hotel that tries to get its own little like boutique points system or something, are they always going to be then at a disadvantage compared to other hotels that might take on like a more global program like Air Miles or something international?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I mean,
because you're building from scratch. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go on.
No, I was just gonna say you're essentially building from scratch, right? It's no one knows you in that, or no one knows your loyalty program in that sense. If you're not a chain that has hotels everywhere, and you start, if it's the same, it's essentially the same topic that Gabriele was talking about at the beginning with Apple and the whole AI topic. Apple has such a big distribution channel or platform, let's say, with all the iPhones, all the Macs, all the devices that are out. If, let's say, they had built AI from the beginning with the intention of really having everyone use AI and their own proprietary AI, it might be now one of the strongest AI, because just so many people have iPhones, so many people have Apple devices, that the distribution is in an instant. It's a feature. They unlock it, everyone's gonna have it, right? So the same is with your question or your follow-up with these boutique loyalty programs. If you're not a let's say if Marriott didn't have a loyalty program, but they have a world of hotels, like literally no matter where you go, there's a Marriott, or at least a Marriott chain hotel. If they opened up a loyalty program today, they would immediately rack up and get a massive amount of members, because people go to Marriott hotels in general. It's because they're everywhere, and they have the members already. They have the guests that go. So opening up a loyalty there, if you call it a boutique loyalty program at that level, but if they started their own, it would immediately catch on, right? If you are a small hotel that is only in one city or maybe one or two cities, and you say, "Oh, cool, I'm going to start a loyalty program," sure, maybe a few guests are going to join and say, "Cool, I go here, on my summer vacation every now and then." But it's not going to be the same as saying, "I am now part of Miles & More," or "I am now part of this global travel loyalty program that already has millions of members, and members that now know they can earn miles there are more likely to maybe try out that boutique hotel and see the charm of that small hotel, because they can also earn points. And if they can spend them, even better, they can try it out for free, basically, right? Versus them opening their own loyalty program and the guests saying, "I'm not going to join that. Like, I'm not going to come here again," So it opens up being part of
And you did a good job as a hotel.
No, in the sense that I might not come back because maybe it was a one-off trip. It's not necessarily. It's not. Maybe it was a city trip. You're not going to come here again in the next year or so. So that being part of this global loyalty program opens up a whole avenue that you wouldn't have if you opened up your own loyalty program or if you started. Besides, and that's not even taking into account the whole operations of it. That's a different story that just makes it even more complex. But even just from a name standpoint and from a catching on and having members joining standpoint is already a whole different. And it also elevates you, I would say, as a hotel, if you can say, "I'm part of Miles & More," all of a sudden,
like a prestige sort of thing.
Yeah, everyone who uses Miles & More is like, "Okay, cool, that hotel is on my list now."
It's I guess that's interesting, because also just from a business side, through Gabriele and Gianluca, we're a very then data-driven company, and a lot of the really interesting decisions that get made, or a lot of the interesting metrics that are good for these hotel onboardings, is telling people and giving them these metrics about what percentage of people prefer to book with a hotel that has a loyalty program, or how many members are actually a part of this well-known loyalty program and stuff like that. It's I guess, when you mention it like that sort of makes it quite clear, I think, how important it is to actually be a part of something that's a little bit larger and more international. I would love to move on to another interesting point that's on this slide. It's a bit of a side point, but it opens up a really interesting conversation. Loyalty benefits are also directly influencing how travelers book. Complimentary breakfast, this is just an example, when offered as part of a program, increases the likelihood of booking directly with a hotel to 85%. while premium service tiers influence up to 80% of members to select one brand over another. So they specifically talk about direct bookings here. The dynamic there I've always found kind of fascinating, where hotels will obviously prefer direct bookings, but at the same time, the amount of people that search through booking.com and all of these other platforms is something that you can't really ignore. So you kind of have to also add to that. But what's the, I mean, I guess the sort of interesting question there is, like, how do the hotels approach this? It's kind of like, it's a little bit aside from the actual topic here, but like, I know that it's something that every hotel owner kind of contends with, is how much focus should we put on booking.com and how much focus should we put on like rewarding people and making them feel good about booking directly with us? You know, is this something that you guys are, sorry?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. I'd love to add
Please.
something to this directly. And when it comes to hotels and so on, I also use Airbnbs often. So I'm not specifically in one hotel chain or one loyalty program specifically, but one thing that I noticed about Marriott, for example, now we're bringing this up because obviously Gabriele also just spoke about it, and I have some experience using their direct booking and their app and everything. And what I wanted to say is, what I love about this statement, first of all, I feel spoken to 100% because I've seen this time and time again, where when I look at bookings and so on, I usually check booking.com, but oftentimes I go also to the website itself just to see what they offer, because oftentimes booking does it differently than they do. And also, obviously, being of the industry, you think ahead and you say, okay, let me check what booking shows and let me check what the hotel says. But one thing that I noticed is, and that speaks for these kind of loyalty programs like Marriott Bonvoy, where it is not an afterthought, it is not a marketing tactic, it is not this, we're a hotel and we happen to have a loyalty program, but rather it is part of the DNA of the hotel, meaning that when you go into their app, which is the Marriott Bonvoy app, it's not even the Marriott Hotel app, it's the Marriott Bonvoy app. You go book through there. If I wanted to book a hotel in Marriott Hotel, I would go into the app, which is called Marriott Bonvoy. It's the loyalty program app. It's not the hotel app. And already there, it puts you on the right track as a member, because you're already thinking about the loyalty program aspect of the hotel. And the hotel is just the medium where you're essentially experiencing your loyalty program experience through, you know. If I'm making a bit of sense, it's not I'm booking a room somewhere, but I'm booking it through the loyalty program directly. So it's literally baked into the process of you getting a stay, and not an afterthought. It's literally the beginning of that. And I see that every single time I book, I check both booking and the hotel, and literally every time I go back to the hotel directly, because they usually offer these kind of things, unless there's some crazy special thing that booking is doing and for some reason you get half the price because, I don't know, it's a promotion or so. But other than that, it's more like a search engine for general, what does this city offer in terms of hotels and where are they? And then if I see one, or if I see specifically Marriott, for example, or another loyalty program I'm in, I then go to the website and book it from there. Especially because it gives you special perks.
I mean, Gabriela, right? You're kind of in the same camp, right? Where you say you actually just prioritize Marriott over everything else, and then if you don't find anything else, you go to booking, right? So it's kind of.
I think there are two parts of two sides of the story. On one side, you have the hotel as an example. On the other side, you have the hotel guest, right? And as a hotel, you want to increase loyalty, which at the end of the day specifically means, like in KPIs, you want to increase average basket size, you want to increase a frequency that somebody basically books your hotel. You want to increase share of wallet. So if I have 10 stays per year, you want to actually get all my 10 stays as a hotel guest and not just like 5, for example. You also want to basically have the also the KPI direct booking. I mean, one of the things that when you book, for example, through Booking, you don't get the points actually at the hotel, because obviously the hotel pays 15 to 20% commission to Booking. So giving you on top also your points and status, how do you say, status points and so on, is just too expensive. So they basically have different KPIs that they want to push as a hotel, right? So they know, okay, for this I need loyalty. I need loyalty mechanics at the end of the day to actually be able to push those goals, right? And this could be points, those could be status, those could be extra perks like the free breakfast and so on. And that's basically how the hotel thinks about it, right? On the other side, you have the hotel guest that, and maybe that it also touches the point that we're talking about before. Most people have a loyalty program fatigue, in the sense that they have, I don't know, 10, 15 apps on their phone. And like, honestly, with everyone I'm talking about loyalty, like when somebody asks, what are you doing? And I start talking, everybody the same, literally everybody the same. I have so many loyalty programs, and there I have so many points, but I don't really know how much, what I can do with it and so on. So people don't have the overview. People have too many loyalty programs. People don't know. I mean, think about it. It's like saying I have 10 bank accounts and I don't know how much cash I have where. It's like basically you have money lying around and you don't know how to use it and how much actually it's worth, right? So people have that issue, and that's why I think these global chains win a lot of business, because at the end of the day, it is super easy. If I use Marriott, I have a huge ecosystem of hotels, and it goes from budget hotels to super high luxury. Like at Marriott, I think Ritz-Carlton, for example, is part of Marriott, but you also then have those Marriott courtyards, which are more on the budget side, right? So if you're budget conscious, you find something. If you actually don't care about budget, you find something, right? So they have such a huge ecosystem that for me as a guest, it is much easier to use that. So I can optimize loyalty and I can optimize my needs. It doesn't matter if I budget conscious or not. And I get the free perks, I get the nights, I get the points, etc., etc. So I think that's those are the kinds of two sides of the story. And then if you think about like smaller outlets, like a boutique hotel, for example, also if they maybe have 2-3 hotels in their chain, right? If you think about it, that you book that specific boutique hotel and they ask you about a loyalty program, you just don't want to add another program to your wallet. And the incremental value is so small, because as Gianluca said, like if we're not going into a big city like London, like Paris, like I don't know, like again, big cities where you have big chains and so on, you go maybe to, I'll take one example, because we have a client there, Sylt, which is a small island in the north of Germany, actually quite high end and kind of the Saint-Tropez of Germany, but in the north. You have a lot of boutique hotels. You don't actually have chains there, right? So if you then think about that, you're one of those boutique hotels that actually can offer rewards and benefits from a major loyalty program because you're connected to them. So, for example, you're connected to Miles & More, right? Because most probably Marriott won't take you on if you're a boutique hotel, like your competition. But if you're connected to a Miles & More, as an example, you actually give a huge additional benefit to your members, and you can actually push those KPIs like added frequency, added basket size, added direct bookings, and so on. And you don't have to give the customer a pain by telling them, register also for our loyalty program, right? So the next time you go to Sylt, you actually, and not even the next time, it's like the first time you go and you go through the list and you see, this one gives me actually additional benefits because I can earn my miles that I actually like and I actually fly all the time. That gives you a huge competitive advantage.
Becomes a no-brainer.
Yeah, out of 3, 4, 5, or 10 hotels that you actually like on that island, you say, you know what, I'll choose this one because the hotel looks nice, the price is fine, and I get the additional benefit. And in most of the cases, you always see like 3, 4, 5 hotels, which pricing wise are the same. They look plus minus the same. They give you plus minus the same, let's say a spa, a good restaurant, all kinds of like amenities that you have in hotels, right? Now, if you get that additional benefit, you 100% win. You win that business, and you don't create additional fatigue for the user. And I think at the end of the day, every business, doesn't matter what industry you are, you need to make the customer's life easier and better, and add value through that. So if you can connect to a major program and actually give that benefit, you 100% win that business. And so it's not about, let's say, the smaller you are as a business, the less sense it makes to actually have your own loyalty program. You need loyalty. Like you need a loyalty. It's kind of a contradictory statement. You need a loyalty program, but you don't need your own loyalty program. So it's really about, okay, how can I make that experience better, but without now having to actually, again, create my own program, which creates a huge amount of work for me, plus it creates more work for the user. And that's why I think also a lot of these big chains win a lot of businesses, because it's just like, again, if you go on Marriott, you find almost in every city, you find a hotel, and not only one, actually, you find multiple hotels. And it just makes your life so much easier, because you don't have to change behavior. You stack up your points, stack up your nights, etc., etc. And so every smaller business that shouldn't have a loyalty program, they must actually connect to a larger one to actually be able to differentiate themselves to others.
I mean, just in the most basic terms, exactly the way you say it. I mean, you just open yourself up to this entire community of people that are very like exclusively selecting the points that directly benefit them best, right? So it just seems like it makes a lot of sense.
And actually, the cool thing is, if you are a smaller business, and I mean, I don't want to make self-promotion, but it is really amazing what we're actually offering. So I have to say it, like Marriott, you actually have a huge advantage compared to then the big chains, because Marriott, for example, obviously has their loyalty program, Bonvoy, and they push that one, right? They have maybe some connections with airlines and so on, but you as a smaller hotel, you can almost give the same experience to your users, because through platforms like us, for example, you can connect actually to multiple airlines. So you can really serve all the clients you have, and not even airlines. It could be a retail program. It could be whatever program you actually want to integrate, right? So you can offer your members pretty close experience to what a Marriott, for example, has, or like a big chain has, with not having the operational burden of creating your own loyalty program, managing your own loyalty program, all of that stuff. And on the other side, not giving extra fatigue to your user or to your customer, because they have to download now your program. So you're actually able to offer so many benefits to your customers without creating additional costs for you and for your customer.
Something worth noting for any hotel out there that is not part of any loyalty program, you might just give us a call. Yeah, totally. Oh, fantastic. My gosh. This time has flown by for this conversation, for me, to be honest. There isn't too much other stuff to actually cover, because we're actually getting towards the end of the episode. But just to sort of rehash, I mean, this is one of the other parts of the article here, but just talking about the dynamic, again, this was the dynamic between direct bookings and bookings through other providers. So the increasing role of loyalty programs in direct bookings has clear financial implications. I mean, this is just another argument for onboarding another like bigger points program. You can reward those customers that do their loyalty, that do their direct bookings, and then just say like, okay, you get that if you book directly through us. If you did it through booking, well, I mean, then you forego, you get your booking points or whatever it is. But either way, that's something that's also very, very clear, I think. But now, just before we set this topic to bed, before we move on to close out today's episode, are there any final thoughts based on what we've heard today? I mean, we've learned a whole lot, both in terms of airline loyalty programs and hotel loyalty programs. Gianluca, do you have any closing words before I sign us off for today?
Yeah, I would say that based on what we discussed with these articles today, and also the one that you said you'll link in the description that we didn't go over, which is about essentially loyalty programs and the currencies as a payment experience, it really adds up when you focus on a loyalty program that you enjoy and that is part of obviously services and products that you use frequently, because there is a lot of purchasing power or currency power and also loyalty tier power if you continuously put your time and your loyalty essentially into that program, because you will advance into it. And especially with with the concept of it being in a way a currency that you can use for payments, will also help you in the future to just get more out of it than split your attention across a million loyalty programs.
How it should be. You get loyalty rewards by being loyal. That's exactly how it should always be. 100%. Yeah. Gabriele, last word over to you. Anything else you'd like to add?
Enjoy life.
There you go.
Also good advice.
At the end of the day, there's so much shit happening in the world and also in life sometimes, that with small tweaks in your behavior, you can actually get so much more out of life. Literally make it more enjoyable when you fly, when you make a trip, when you go to a grocery store, and so on. So I think for customers, for end customers and consumers, really be aware of those benefits. Like, most of the times you already have so many benefits already that you can actually get in your life that are there, and you just don't think about it. You're not really prepared for that, and you just don't use them, which is literally you leave money on the table, or you leave time on the table. And on the other side, as businesses, obviously, again, if you want to be relevant for the next 5, 10, 20 years, it's a must to think about these kind of dynamics. Either you build your own program, if you're big enough to actually be able to do it, or you're connecting to an existing program because you want to give additional benefits to your customers. Also there, again, you leave money on the table just because you don't implement certain mechanics that are so straightforward. And again, not doing self-promotion, but it is the fact, and it is the case, that with businesses and with platforms like ours, you can implement these kind of mechanics in literally in a few hours, and then be able to offer your customers a completely new user experience. So again, just enjoy life, be aware of what you have, and use it all.
I mean, you can call yourselves oracles. I mean, this is something that you guys had been like preparing for or talking about or building a business around for years. And now we're getting articles coming out about saying, oh my God, it actually makes sense for hotels to join a global loyalty program. Who knew? You know, it feels like this article fell right onto our lap. So that's also kind of nice.
Absolutely.
But 100%, thank you guys again for your time. This has been episode 14. I've already got a bit of inspiration, I think, for the next episode as well, because I think the dynamic between direct hotel bookings and sort of booking agencies is a really, really interesting topic to talk about, because I had been in the camp of like, I was collecting my booking.com points. I was at Genius level 3 for a while. You do get good perks. You do get good discounts and stuff like that, you know? I think for Genius level 3, it was like a 20% discount on bookings and stuff like that. So it's substantial. Mm-hmm. So that could be also something worth digging into for the future. But for now, as always, the links to all of the articles are going to be below in the description, along with the timestamps to the beginning of each conversation that we have on the different topics. This has been a really interesting one. So honestly, I know it's the very end, but I would strongly recommend people listening to actually the entire thing, because I mean, there's been some really cool value either way. If I had to pick one, though, of course, it would be the hotel one, though, because it just touches on us so perfectly and so well. But that being said, we're going to be back live very, very soon. Potentially with a slight little change to the show that we're going to be introducing maybe for the first time. So who knows about that? Just a little something to look forward to. And with that, guys, thank you all so much for watching, and we will catch everybody in the next one. Have a good one, everyone. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Watch out.